Welcome to That Boxing Writers Podcast, the weekly podcast show about boxing. I'm That Boxing Writer, Jeremy Harridges, and let's start the show. Hello, fight fans. I'm That Boxing Writer, Jeremy Harridges, and welcome to That Boxing Writers Podcast. This is episode number 5, and this is going to be a bit of a retrospective, taking a look back at some of the best interviews that I've had on the YouTube channel over the last year. There's one that actually goes back to 2020, but it was December and it was too good not to include. So I had to throw it in there. So a retrospective, best boxing interviews in recent history. For me, that is. Before we get to some of the best boxing interviews that I've had throughout the year, wanted to say a few quick things looking at the state of boxing right now. Obviously, if we go back to last weekend, we had the Pacquiao versus Ugas fight, which there could be plenty to be said about that. And then we have this weekend, the Paul versus Woodley fight. So I'm going to offer up a quick prediction on that as well. Next week, hopefully I'll have it back on the podcast back on a regular schedule out on Tuesdays at noon. This one, I was just so packed with different interviews and projects, needed a bit of a breather from the constant grind of talking to great people, which I love. But, it's a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I wear a lot of different hats as an educator, as a writer, as a parent, as a husband. So this, I thought, was a nice little retrospective on some of the things that have been going down, not just on this podcast, not just for my work for fansided.com or the YouTube channel, but, all of them combined. So hopefully you guys like some of these interviews, and maybe if you haven't seen some of them, it'll pique your interest a little bit to go back and check them out. First, let's talk about the Pacquiao retirement. We don't know that he's retired yet, so let's put that out there. A lot of people are talking about, should he retire at this point? Against Ugas, I thought he had an admirable performance, but you can look at it and say that wasn't the Pacquiao that we typically see, that there was something missing there. Not to say that Yordenis Ugas doesn't deserve credit. He most certainly does, but there is that age factor. Pacquiao's about to be 43. He's been at it a long time. He's been in some wars. I believe this was his 72nd fight. It was either his 72nd or his 73rd bout. I'll go with 72. That's a lot. That's a really hard road to go through, and to be as good as he is and have to go through all that, there's a finite amount of time, and he looks far from shot. He could definitely come back and do a rematch with Ugas. He's still competitive, but does he want to do that, knowing that he's missing some of his best stuff, or that he's on the decline? Is it worth it for him? And if he still feels the need to do it and he still loves it, then so be it. I don't know. I have a feeling that he's going to remain retired. He had a very cryptic tweet that came out just several days ago. I wrote about it for Fansided, saying, did Manny Pacquiao just retire? It really came off that way, that he was kind of saying goodbye at that point. At least that's the way I read into it. Of course, can't report it as a retirement, because unless he says the words, I'm retired, I'm done, all we can do is say, did he imply it? Did he not? Unless he explicitly says it, he's not retired. So we'll see what happens. I also wrote about, for the After the Fight column, this Monday's issue of After the Fight on fansided.com/boxing. I wrote about my favorite Pacquiao moment. My favorite moment was Pacquiao versus Erik Morales 2. And if you've never seen that fight, I believe it was the fight of the year when it occurred back in 2005. If memory serves me correctly, go back and check it out. It was such a great fight. And it was a vengeance fight for Pacquiao, because he had lost a close decision, unanimous decision, against Erik Morales the first time around. And then they went to war the second time around, but he got the better of it, broke Morales down, stopping him in the later rounds. They fought it for a third time, and that one ended even faster. Just one of a remarkable performance. And I think that was really, for me, looking at his career, where he took the step up to becoming an all-time great. Not to say he wasn't great before that point, he was, But I thought that was the point where he showed really what he was made out of and who he was going to be as a future superstar in boxing. One of the greatest boxers of all time, one of the greatest boxers to ever lace up a pair of gloves. If we never see Pacquiao again, it was a great career. If we do, then I think we're going to tune in, and I think it'll still be a competitive fight. I think he's got more fight in him. He could probably still be competitive all the way through 48, but little by little, I think we're going to see age taking its toll, as we've seen already. So up to him. He's earned the right to decide how he wants to go out. I think every fighter has that right, and we'll see what Pacquiao decides to do next. Moving on to Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. Showtime pay-per-view on Sunday. This fight is starting to get some buzz, maybe not for the right reasons. If you were paying attention to social media and everything that was going on with the fight, there was the accusation from Woodley that Jake Paul's entourage was, basically harassing his mom and getting into a war of the words. Jake Paul pretty much confirmed that, saying that it wasn't right. It's not okay to do that. He came out and said, we shouldn't have, people going after people's parents and things of that nature. So, just one of those things that you don't want to see it happen. And now we're starting to get silly when you start attacking someone's mom. Not okay. So did it add hype to the fight? Sure. What's this fight going to do? I think there's general intrigue from it because, again, Jake Paul does continually take steps up in competition. Tyron Woodley, still not a boxer, but a former MMA champion, was a welterweight champion for UFC for a little over 2 years, almost 3 years, actually. So it will be a tough fight for Jake Paul. I wrote my prediction earlier in the week for fansided.com/boxing. And I believe that Jake Paul is going to win a decision. I think it's going to be unanimous. I just think that he's skilled enough as a boxer that his knockout power is going to be a threat to Woodley. Woodley is going to be tentative to get inside. He's going to have a hard time getting inside the larger Jake Paul reach. And then the reach is only a 2-inch reach advantage, but Jake Paul, I believe, has like a 4-inch height advantage. I think that Tyron Woodley doesn't have the fleet feet at the age of 39 to really work inside of Paul's reach. So I think he's going to be that Paul's going to be more of a boxer in this one. He's going to rely on his jab, try to set up his power punches with the jab. But I don't think he's going to get Tyron Woodley out of there. I think Woodley is a strong enough, high caliber athlete that he can handle this, that he can handle the power, that he's not going to get knocked out. But I think it's going to be a boxing match. And I think that Jake Paul has the tools between the two to outbox Tyron Woodley. I could be very wrong. To be honest, in this fight, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But that's just my take on what I've seen of Paul in the ring. And Woodley, I'm kind of estimating what he's going to look like as a boxer. It's one of those fights. I love the undercard. Amanda Serrano, Charles Conwell. There's some good fighters on there. Check out the undercard too. And unfortunately, I don't even think Conwell's on the undercard, which I'm not a fan of. I want to see him fight. But I'll be doing a bunch of live action for fansided.com/boxing. So if you don't want to pay for the Showtime pay-per-view, follow along with me. fansided.com/boxing. I'll be doing live results and highlights. And I will also be doing live round by round action for Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. I'll have it all there for you. Join me, join the fun. Maybe I'll do a little boxing talk tomorrow as well, but we'll see. I really wanted to make sure I talk about that a little bit. And we're on a little bit of a siesta right now from all of the hardcore boxing action. It'll pick up. There's always going to be fights there, but we have a little bit of time before we have one of those mega fights, considering we just had the Pacquiao bout and now we've got the Woodley versus Paul spectacle that's going to break down. Hey, it's boxing. If people are watching it, I'm happy. So I'm not complaining about it, but I am picking Jake Paul to win that fight by decision. So let's talk about what we have going on this episode. Taking a look back at some of the interviews that I've had this year, mostly through the YouTube ones that I've had. I thought there were a couple interesting ones that I wanted to highlight. If you see that I have my fake boxing background, it's because I'm off site right now. doing this in another place, but I always love the background. I love having it. I can't tell you how many people see the background and they think I'm really in my basement. I'm not in the boxing basement right now. I'm off site, so something to think about. So looking at the number of interviews that I had, I started off with the ones that provided some sensationalism, some shock value, where a fighter said something that was not expected. And there were two instances. Like I said, most of these are from 2021. The only one that's not is my talk with Billy Joe Saunders. And that was before the Martin Murray fight. And that was in December of 2020. I was on a media call with Billy Joe Saunders, and he went to a rather odd place talking about, well, some explicit things that he does in the woods. It was a truly bizarre moment, but I had to ask him about it. So this is my very bizarre conversation, minute conversation with Billy Joe Saunders. Check it out.
Final question for me, and I didn't think I'd be asking this one, but you talked about training and about sex. Is it safe to assume that you're not of the belief that sex weakens the knees, weakens the legs, and do you abstain?
It's strong. You do when you do the sex in the woods. You know, like when you're putting your leg over the trees and under the trees and under the bushes, different positions and stuff like that. That's a workout. That's a pure workout, and you're having fun. That's called a fun workout.
So no abstaining from it leading up to the fight whatsoever.
No, just a couple of knee burns.
Sounds good. Thank you, Billy.
So yes, that was a truly bizarre moment. I've never gone there with a boxer before about that type of content or or subjects. So it was very bizarre. And then the next one that I'm going to be presenting for shock value comes from Rolly Romero, who I've talked to many times. And every time I talk to him, he says something that catches me off guard. He's a great interview. Sometimes his interviews are a bit explicit, so beware. You are going to hear some curse words in this one. I'm not playing the full thing, but there's a couple clips that he was definitely saying some harsh things about possible future opponents. I think some of the targets on there, I mean, he actually was pretty respectful towards Gervonta Davis. Not so much about Devin Haney, and not so much about I forgot who he's talking about. But he throws in a few people in there. So if you got something to, you're on Rolly Romero's bad side, he's going to let you know about it. So here's what he had to say about several fighters within the division.
We talked about 6 months ago, immediately after your last fight against Avery Sparrow. I know that there's been difficulties, Austin Delay pulling out of the fight at the last second. How did you get that news and how did you react to it initially?
That fucking pussy, man. That's literally, I was pissed off. I was pissed off. Like, I was really pissed off. I was very disappointed. I mean, you get a world title shot and you pull out, like, that just makes you a bitch.
Were you buying his rationale or his reasoning at all?
Look, I'm gonna tell you like this. At the beginning of camp, I broke both my fucking ankles. Last week, I was in a fucking car accident that totaled my car completely. And I'm still fighting because I give two shits.
Obviously, assuming that you're victorious in this fight, who would be your number one fight that you would make for yourself?
Floyd said that Gervonta Davis is only fighting PBC fighter. Well, I'm a PBC fighter, so that's next. That I wanted, but the thing is, this one's by far the easiest one to make, by far. And like I said, we're gonna keep all this shit in house, so it's gonna be easy to make, really easy to make.
Again, obviously, he's the one that has a big name, is very impressive with the perfect record. It makes a lot of sense. Is there a bad blood fight that's out there for you? Maybe someone that you just don't like, that like, hey, if I don't get that fight, I'd like to fight this guy just because I don't like him.
Devin Haney, Jorge Linares, like those two guys I really don't like, but I mean,
Is it just the talk that they've had out there in the past via social media that makes you feel that way? Is it the war of the words, or what is it in particular about those two?
Well, Devin Haney just, I mean, it's just the social media shit. He a bitch. But Jorge Linares, I actually had trained with Jorge Linares, when back when I was still an amateur before I turned pro, back when we were over there, we were both at Salas. And I'll tell you this, he's the most arrogant, big-headed motherfucker I've ever met. But I mean, like I said, I was a kid. When you walk in, you see, a champ, all that stuff. There's like literally no respect with that. Like, not that he was disrespectful, but the arrogance, like he looked down on me. So you know what? I don't like phony motherfuckers. And they want to talk shit about me, go fuck himself.
Always an interesting one with Rolly. The next one I think exhibits optimism, and this is the one that actually got a lot of attention. It's the most viewed video that I have on my YouTube channel, and it was my talk with YouTuber Deji before the Social Gloves event where he fought Vinny Hacker. Obviously, that didn't go well for Deji. It didn't go the way that he had planned it. It was a disappointing loss for him. But regardless of the wins and losses, anything can happen in a boxing ring. And what I appreciated about my time with Deji is that he really showed an exuberance for boxing. He really showed an enjoyment for it, even though it didn't go the way that he wanted. And maybe he'll never do in boxing what he hopes that he could do. He still found the joy in it. He still had a good time training for it. And he still put it all out there in the ring. Not a lot of people get a chance to do that. So for a lot of people that were making fun of him after the fight, I thought that was really unfair. He gave it his all. And sometimes you just got to give it up for people that put forth the effort. So this is my talk with Deji, and a little clip to show that optimism, that enjoyment that he got from just doing the training. And I appreciate him for his effort and for his love for boxing. So here's my talk with Deji.
Hello, fight fans. I am here with Deji, who is getting ready for a battle with Vinny Hacker. Deji is a very famous social media star and YouTuber, also has experience in the ring. Deji, thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you for having me.
So I'm kind of curious. It's really become a phenomenon, social media and boxing. There's this link that's there, and we're seeing it with your fights that you've got coming up in a week. We're seeing it with Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather, Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. What attracts the two together, and how did the two become so infused together?
I would say it's because there's money to be made, because each they have a following. So obviously Jake Paul having like such a social following, and then Tyron having such a fight following, and then just combining those two, it's just money to be made. That's why. So ultimately, it's just more eyes on the sport of boxing.
As far as you getting into it, obviously your older brother had experiences. What really got you immersed within boxing, and what drew you to it?
So all my life, I've been doing like some sort of combat. So for 8 years, I used to do judo. I did taekwondo when I was in school, same with karate. So I've always been doing some sort of combat. So now that I get to I essentially use what I've been taught, it's just fun, really. So I just enjoy it. I've never been afraid to get hit in the face, so that's why I'm up there for it. Yeah.
Now I know there's obviously the mix of fame, money that's involved with it, and there seems to really be a high profile, especially with your followers of other YouTubers and social media stars. But is it also the thrill of, being in the ring and having that experience? Is that at the heart of it for you?
So I am a thrill seeker. I won't dispute that. Obviously, get my name out there is perfect too, but I'm mainly doing this for myself. Boxing and everything is mainly, I'm just doing this for myself. I am a thrill seeker, and I guess that's it really. I just like fighting. Fighting is awesome.
This next one occurred with boxer and MMA fighter Clay Collard. I wasn't expecting him to say what he said. It was the first question that I threw out there. And basically the question was, hey, what's new? What's happening? This is before he jumped into the PFL fight game, the fight tournament.
and he really shared some distressing news about his brother's passing. I was completely unaware that he was dealing with this. So it caught me completely off guard. You know, I thought he was going to say, yeah, you know, things are going great. To hear that he lost his baby brother was definitely an emotional swing that I wasn't expecting. But I really respect how he took that pain and used it to drive him in his MMA pursuits. I think he lost in the PFL playoff, but he had a huge victory over Anthony Pettis, really showing that he's got skill as an MMA fighter and someone that I really respect. And I think this was a very candid moment between us where he was talking about the loss of his brother. So this was my talk with Clay Collard.
I mean, I recently had my baby brother passed away. He was in a car accident, so that was kind of hard. Other than that, man, things have been going well, you know.
Wow, that's pretty heavy. I mean, how long ago did that occur?
Month and 2 days ago.
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss and your family's loss.
Thank you.
Obviously, you know, going through that makes things very difficult anytime there's any sort of trauma. How have you kind of focused yourself on your fighting career, and as how difficult has that been?
Honestly, I kind of dove into it, you know. I got this huge fight coming up, and you know, it's a great distraction, you know, getting in there and getting after it. So if anything, it's helped me train harder and help me, you know, training has helped me get through it. But you know, it's still not easy. It's tough, but you know, I know my little brother would want me to get in there and, you know, smash Pettis's face. So I'm training my hardest to do that. So yeah.
Everybody likes a feel-good boxing moment. And with Jojo Diaz, after his troubles in the ring with losing his title on the scale, a lot of people were doubting him. He jumps up in weight in his last fight, and, you know, people were doubting, can he do this? I think it was against Javier Fortuna. And he showed that he really put in the effort. He had a great performance, came back strong, showed what he's made out of. I think the importance of a personal life and what's going on in a boxer's personal life can have a huge impact on their upcoming bouts and their career. He was dealing with a lot. He was dealing with a lot of managerial issues, business problems. There was a whole bunch of drama there, but I respect that he said, hey, I'm focused. I'm fighting for my son and my family. I've got it together, and just watch. And he sure did put it together, and is now back on top. So this was my talk with Jojo Diaz. I mean, this is a great opportunity. I'm curious, how were you approached with the Javier Fortuna bout? And had you been considering 135 for a while, or was this a case of an offer you couldn't refuse?
This was an offer that I couldn't refuse, man. While it was an offer, it was an opportunity. I wanted to, you know, get back inside that ring after my last performance. I wasn't satisfied with everything that turned out. So I hit up my advisors, MTK and Golden Boy Promotions, and let them know that I wanted to, you know, get right back into that ring. And they were focusing on getting me into the ring. There was a couple of opponents being thrown at me, but I wasn't, you know, really satisfied with those opponents because I wanted to fight a top tier elite opponent right after this last fight, because I wanted to, you know, get back into it and showcase to everybody that I could beat a top tier guy. And I started praying to God, started, you know, really sitting down and just praying for an opportunity to, you know, let God open up a door for me to go out there and showcase to everybody what I'm all about. And Ryan Garcia ended up pulling out of the Javier Fortuna fight due to his mental illness. And I wish Ryan Garcia nothing but the best. But that right there just very intrigued me, man. It kind of just rang a bell and gave me an idea, where I ended up hitting up MTK and hitting up Golden Boy Promotions and telling them, like, yo, let's fight Javier Fortuna. Put me in with Javier Fortuna. I'll move up to 135 pounds and fill in that date and fill in that fight, and let's make it happen. They were all intrigued, and ever since then, man, they started hitting up Javier Fortuna. Javier Fortuna hit the fight, and just in a matter of days, man, we got the fight locked up.
I know with 135, there's so many options. I mean, you could fight at 130 and 135. Are you kind of using this as like a measuring stick to see if this is kind of where you want to go, or are you undecided on the future of where you want to go?
After this fight, I mean, I feel like I can still compete at 130, and I feel like I'm gonna fill out perfectly at 135 pounds. You guys are gonna see come July 9th. I don't want to, I could say a lot of stuff, but I just want you guys to see it on July 9th, my performance and how strong I'm going to be and how I am going to perform July 9th. So once you guys see that, then you guys can see that I'll be able to fill out 135 pounds. But I just think that it's going to be just depending on the opportunity now for myself and for my career, which opportunity is the biggest for my career, for myself. And if there's an opportunity for me to go back down to 130 and fight a big name at 130 pounds, so be it, man. I'll move back down. But if there's another big name at 135 pounds, like Javier Fortuna or a bigger name, then I'll be willing to, stay at 135 pounds and compete and fight that challenge.
Last but not least is one of my many talks with Xander Zayas. Xander, I've talked to him before he even turned pro. I've known him for the last few years. One of my favorite people to interview because there's always so much positivity around Xander. He never, everything is an opportunity for him. He never looks with sort of pessimism, or he's always optimistic. He's always looking to better himself. And he has this belief and this confidence in his abilities. And it's really clicking for the young gun, as I like to call him. That's my nickname for him. Xander did this, I think it was right before his 7th or 8th bout this year. And in talking to me, he laid out the goal that, hey, I want to be prospect of the year. Well, right now he's shortlisted on ESPN's mid-year review as being the prospect of the year. If he keeps winning and keeps doing it in style like he's been doing, there's a good chance he could be the prospect of the year. I put together the awards for fansided.com/boxing. So we'll see if he continues on that tear, and he might be there on all sorts of different levels. But always refreshing to talk to Xander, and I love hearing about the future and how he's making it come true. It's almost like if he can speak it into existence, it's going to happen. So here is my talk with Xander Zayas.
Man, that's the goal for this year. I want to finish the year fighting 8 rounders. I want to fight at least 6 times this year. Keep stepping up in competition, and the most important one, win prospect of the year. This is fight number 2. The second fight at 6 rounders, maybe I'll say maybe 1 more 6 rounder or 2 more 6 rounder, and then we move up to 8.
Mm-hmm. And talking about that progression in opponent, I mean, we saw it from the last opponent. Now another step up. Yeah. DeMarcus Layton, your upcoming opponent, he's a big body, 6'2", long reach. Is the idea right now, kind of looking at this as kind of like I said before with sparring, that showing you different types of fighters, different styles, different builds, giving you that experience?
100%. I think Top Rank has always done a great job with the matchmaking. They have Hall of Famers. And giving me different style will get me ready to, whenever I have to face a top contender. Either if he's tall, either if he's small, either if he's strong, either if he's a boxer, I will be able to realize that I've faced everything. I've faced everything, in my career. But I think that's a very important thing that they're doing with me, showing me different sizes, different boxers, and giving me different looks.
So those were a few of my big interviews throughout the 2021 boxing year. We still have 4 months to go. I'm looking forward to it. There's going to be big interviews upcoming. Make sure that you guys keep listening to the podcast. Make sure that you guys follow me on my socials. On Twitter, I'm at @BoxingWriter, Instagram @ThatBoxingWriter, and of course on YouTube, That Boxing Writer. This is That Boxing Writers podcast. Thank you for joining me. Wait till next week. There's going to be another one with brand new, fresh guests and exclusive interviews. Thank you guys for following what I do. Always appreciate the audience and the support. Make sure to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and follow along, guys. See you next time.